Your period is telling you a lot about your fertility. And before we jump into the details of this video, I want to share with you a real live example of exactly what I mean. What is this person's period and menstruation telling her? It's telling her that she's making a ton of progress in the right direction. And I want to share this with you. So this is a member of my Hope coaching program, and she writes, she says, "Good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My weekly win," we ask everyone to share wins when they have them because we want to celebrate with them. She says, "My weekly win is that I experience my first painless period ever with very few clots during this detox week. This is really mind-blowing because I always had excruciating cramps and I'm so thankful." So let's find out why this is so important for her and what it's telling her about her fertility. Before I jump into that, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this week's video, Fairhaven Health. They put out many great supplements like FH Pro for women. If you want more information on this product or any of their products, just use the link in the description below. Hi, my name is Dr. Marc Sklar, also known as the Fertility Expert. And I've been working with couples for close to 20 years through my online coaching program and right here in sunny San Diego. So if you're local here in San Diego, come say hi. Irregular periods, painful periods, no period. These are all important topics and they all tell us something about our hormones and our fertility. And most importantly, I want you all to first recognize and be aware that your body is talking to you, and it talks to you every day, all day, in many ways. And one of the ways for all of you women out there that it talks to you is through your menstrual cycle. That's right. Your menstrual cycle is telling you how your fertility is, how your hormones are doing, if everything is working right or not quite, and it's giving you clues so that you can start to dig deeper to understand more. And that's why understanding your cycles is so important. Along with anything else, right? We want to pay attention to our body in every aspect so that we could listen to the things that it's telling us so that we can make changes when necessary. And your cycles is an important piece of this as well. So for us to understand all those differences, those nuances to our cycle, we first have to start with understanding what a cycle should look like and what we want it to be. Okay, so your ovaries house what we call follicles. And inside those follicles are eggs. The follicle is like the sac that holds the egg. And hopefully every follicle has an egg inside. And at the start of your menstrual cycle, when you start to bleed, your body will start to increase and produce FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and it does exactly what it says in its name. It's a hormone that stimulates your follicle to mature and grow. And that's what allows these eggs and follicles to grow, and your body selects one of those eggs, typically on a normal natural cycle, to ovulate out as the best egg to use that cycle. Every month after that cycle is over and that egg is gone, your body and ovaries recruit more follicles, a new set of follicles, so that the whole process can start over again of selecting that one dominant or mature follicle to create that egg for you every cycle. This is a time where I think it's important for us to talk about what's called an antral follicle count, which would be done at the beginning of a cycle or end of a previous cycle by your OBGYN or reproductive endocrinologist. And they will be looking through ultrasound at your ovaries to see how many follicles are growing. They might often say you have X amount of eggs. So we often can interchange those words, although they are two different things because the egg is inside the follicle, okay? And so often a misunderstanding is that when you are told what your antral follicle count is that you believe or are misinformed that is the amount of eggs you have left, which is just not true. Remember, just a moment ago, I said that at the beginning of every cycle, your body will recruit new follicles, and actually that recruitment starts to happen at the end of the previous cycle, that you will recruit new follicles to go through that process again. So it's not like you only have that number on an antral follicle count. that number can change and fluctuate from cycle to cycle. So back to FSH, while your FSH is doing its thing, your estradiol is also increasing at the start of a cycle, and it increases for two reasons. It does first and foremost, although we need estrogen for many things, but in this specific purpose that I'm trying to explain, it's for two reasons. The first is to thicken your lining, your endometrium, to create a good fertile environment for implantation when that sperm and egg meet and create an embryo. And then two, it's also increasing, and when it gets to an appropriate level, it signals to your brain that you're ready to ovulate, and it sends a signal to increase your LH, your luteinizing hormone, so that your body knows that it's time to release the egg from that follicle. This is when the magic happens, so to speak. When that egg is released, it is captured by the fallopian tube and it makes its way through the fallopian tube, and that is where the egg and sperm meet and hopefully fertilize and create an embryo. That's right. Ovulation is actually the thing that will bring on your cycle. So in this video, we're talking about irregular cycles or the variations in your cycles. And it's really key to understand that ovulation is that main component, that main piece that will cause you to have a bleed at the next cycle. And that's what keeps that whole process flowing and moving forward. So if you have a regular cycle, then you are ovulating. That is the key piece that I want you to take out of this portion of the video. I should also say that you should begin your menstruation about 2 weeks after ovulation. So we count backwards, and you typically would ovulate around 12 to 14, maybe a little bit longer days prior to your menstruation or your menstrual cycle starting. And that's a key piece to understanding the rhythm of your cycle. So what happens if your cycles are too short? Or for that matter, what happens if they're too long? The good news, the positive, is that they are predictable. If they're too short or they're too long, then at least we know that they're happening and they're predictable and easier to track. But typically it also means that you're not ovulating, or you're not ovulating every cycle, because there's some inconsistency in your cycles. And so that's a clue to us to look deeper and start to understand what's going on with your hormones, or what might be influencing your cycles to be a little bit off. What does it mean to have no period whatsoever? That's called amenorrhea. No menstruation. And that's not ideal at all. We want to be really mindful of this. This is something, unfortunately, we can see relatively often. This is not something we're fans of. We want to make sure that you're having a regular and predictable cycle, because that's what makes it easier for you to time intercourse, to make sure you're ovulating, and for obviously the egg and sperm to meet. The other variation that we need to account for as well and discuss is what's called irregular cycles, oligo. This is when we don't know, we cannot predict. Maybe we have a period or a bleed this month, and then maybe the next one comes 3 or 6 months later. Maybe you only have 3, 4, or 5 cycles in a given year. And this is difficult on so many levels. One, it's very difficult to track ovulation and understand when that's happening so that you can time intercourse properly. But it also means that odds are you're not ovulating on any regularity, even when you are having those cycles. And that obviously makes it challenging as well, because if you're not releasing an egg, you can't get pregnant. So these are all different variations that we might see in a given cycle, or from woman to woman, that we definitely want to improve and regulate. We don't like these variations. We want to make sure that you're ovulating regularly. So somewhere between 26 to 35 days, although a sweet spot is 28 to 30 days, that you know when you're ovulating, that it's predictable, that you can time it, that you can time intercourse around that, and that you can track everything properly. So what are the reasons why we might be having some or any of these irregularities? Well, clearly it starts to tell us that there's some sort of endocrine issue and hormonal imbalance that needs to be looked at. The most common reason to have some sort of irregularity or have no cycles, or like very few cycles in a given year is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I have many videos on this topic. You can check them out if that is a topic that interests you. Another cause for something like this would be your BMI, body mass index. And so that is calculated by your height and your weight. There's all sorts of BMI calculators online that you can look at. Just put in your information and it will tell you where you stand. If you've got low BMI or too high BMI, these are also reasons that might impact your cycles and cause irregular cycles and no ovulation or anovulation. More common, we do see this with low BMIs versus high BMI, but you can see it in either one. Low ovarian reserve, that if we have too little eggs left theoretically, then this could also be a reason why we see some disturbances or irregularities. And irregularities means everything. So from too short to too long to irregular to none, right? Just like I mentioned previously. Thyroid issues are a huge reason why we would see any one of these different variations that we were just mentioning. And we could also see, I should mention here, joint issues, like multiple issues at the same time. It's not uncommon to see PCOS and thyroid issues together. About 50% of the women that we support in our program actually have both PCOS and thyroid issues. And actually, I should be clear about that. 50% of the women with PCOS have also a thyroid issue. Sorry if that was unclear. Your adrenals. So if you have an adrenal disorder, or there's a lot of stress involved, which is part of your adrenal glands regulate your stress response. That could also be a reason why we see irregularities with cycles. And also prolactin. Prolactin is a hormone that you need and create more of to produce breast milk when you are breastfeeding and when you're pregnant. And if that hormone is too high, which can happen, and we see somewhat regularly actually, then this can throw off your cycles as well. So those are all the main reasons why you would see irregularities in a cycle. So we started off this video giving you a sample testimonial, so to speak, if you will, of a woman who's in my program who shared that she, for the first time ever, has had no pain or very little pain. And that's pretty much, she's always experienced her cycles with pain. So let's talk about painful periods, or really painful periods, however you want to put that. I will tell you how painful they are is personal, but regardless, we don't want that to happen. You should be menstruating and it should come easily, with no pain, no sign, no spotting in advance, no clots, no cramping. It comes and it goes, and it's bright red with medium flow, and it tapers. That's an ideal cycle. And I know many of you are saying, well, I've never had that before. Well, neither did she until now, right? So painful periods are something we don't want to see, but what they do tell us is that there's a potential for endometriosis to be there, and the more pain, the more likely that is the case. It also tells us that there's inflammation and that there's a hormonal issue, or I should say, or a hormonal issue. And so we should be looking at all of these things to determine what's going on, what the root cause is, or what you can do about that. Now, many of you might be asking, well, how do we track if I'm ovulating? What do I do? You can use those OPKs. My favorite thing to use is those new digital app-based, I was reaching for my phone, but my phone is right there. Those app-based programs that will tell you where your cycles are and when you're ovulating, and they will track hormones. I love those. I think it gives you a lot of information. You don't have to do it every cycle, but I do think it's useful, especially in the beginning, to do it for 2 or 3 cycles in a row. And then you can see where your patterns are, and then you can take a break, hopefully make some adjustments, and then from there go back to using it and see if you've made any progress. But these trackers, and we can put links to some of them in the description below for you, will absolutely tell you what your levels are. We talked about LH and FSH and estradiol and progesterone. It will tell you those numbers so you can see where you fall and if you're ovulating. So what do we do if we have any of these irregularities moving forward? Well, the first thing that we need to do is do testing. That's right. Many, if not all of these things involve some sort of hormonal irregularity, and we need to find out where that is for all of you. So number 1 on the list is doing some testing. That's right, hormone testing. You hear me say that all the time. This is no different. Number 2 is to clean up your diet and lifestyle. So important. And number 3 is to create or get a customized plan based on your test results and your history that is unique to you so that you can make the progress and the change and get the results that you're looking for. That woman who I shared at the beginning of this video who had, for the first time, not had any menstrual cramps, she has already done some of these things. So she's doing her lab tests, and in the meantime, she started to improve her diet and her lifestyle by starting the detox that we start everybody in my program with. And that's where she started to see this change. So we don't even have her labs back yet. Imagine the progress she's going to be able to make once we have her results back so that we can guide her with a customized plan that is unique to her. I can't wait to see her progress. And I'd love to see your progress as well. So if you want support in trying to understand what labs you need to run, understanding your fertility history, and creating a unique plan for yourself, then I want to invite you, just like she did, to join my Hope Fertility Coaching Program. All you have to do to apply is use the link in the description below. All right, everyone, so I want to hear from all of you. What did you find informational or new by the information that I shared in this video? Comment below and let me know. And more importantly, I want your fertility questions. Comment below with your fertility questions so that I can answer them for you. Just do that right down there. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube video, then just click that bell to subscribe and get notified when I put out another video for all of you. And until the next video, stay fertile.